Why now? That's the big question that everybody wants to know. Why is China now about to finally run into trouble? People have been bearish China for a long time. I'm talking years. And they've lost a lot of money trying to short it too. So many fund managers have tried to make that all-might hero play and call the top at the exact right moment. But they failed and lost money because they underestimated how long the Chinese government can keep a party going. Those communists, you know, they just love getting wild and freaky. So what's different now? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about in this video. But as we've already discussed in this series that I so cleverly named China's Downfall, which if you haven't seen, I'll link to above, make sure you watch it before you watch this video. China abused the Gershon-Crown model of growth. They poured on that debt like ranch on Jet's pizza. And now they're just drowning in all that ranch. Or, you know, debt. They also refuse to transition from an investment to a consumption-based economy, which needs to happen to have economic sustainability. The move is as crucial, if not more crucial, than banning plastic straws is to the sustainability of the environment. No one's thinking about disabled people though and why they need straws. Like, look how sad this girl is. Shame on you, environmentalists. Save the earth, but screw over the disabled. It's messed up. But eventually, you know, China will be forced to rebalance. So they'll need to transfer from an investment and export-based economy to a consumption economy. And that will require transferring wealth from the government and businesses back to households. And they'll also have to deleverage by paying down, writing off, or inflating away their debt. And there's two options China can choose to do this, as we've talked about before. You either got the swift and violent option, or you got the painful, long, and grinding option, which is like watching most finance videos apart from Fallible. So if you choose door number one, swift and violent, you get a financial crisis where assets are sold and debt is written down. And this is exactly what the US did in the 1930s. Now China can't do this because it involves a lot of unemployment. And not having a job just pisses people off, so that leads to social unrest and revolt against the government, which the people in power cannot afford. See, the Communist Party of China, or the CCP for short, does not have the iron grip that you may think it has over the country. It's actually kind of delicate. And that's how communism kind of works, because no one in China is that happy and there's a lot of marginalized groups. So you need to keep them at least borderline satisfied, because otherwise they'll revolt, and their sheer numbers, well, the government can't do anything about that. They revolt, they're screwed. It's not like in the US where we actually have it pretty good. We're pretty friendly with our government, regardless of all the complaints we've been hearing nowadays. But as I tell the youth when they start complaining, well, at least you're not in China, because then you'd have it a lot worse, buddy. What's much more likely is that China picks option number two, the long grind. So this would be a gradual and pragmatic deleveraging, where they would assign the debt servicing cost to local governments, who in turn would be forced to sell assets to pay down that debt. Then the CCP would go after debt in the areas of the economy that are the most vulnerable, the most dangerous areas. So that includes the off-balance sheet shadow lending and the peer-to-peer lending, both which have just grown out of control. And then they'll balance all that with normal debt spending, because the local governments will still need to take on debt to do actual productive investment. All their investment for growth doesn't just completely get shut down. But the whole thing is a tricky balancing act to do it properly. But it is not as tricky as balancing a goat on top of a hookah. And this is actually amazing. I don't know who this guy is or where he found such a talented goat, but China should be on the phone with him for help. But what this means is that there would be no hard crash and financial crisis. Instead, China would look more like Japan in their lost decade. But China has made it very clear that they're not going to make the same mistakes as Japan and let their currency strengthen. That's why we should continue to see the yuan devalue against the dollar. But again, we go back to why do this now? Why not kick the can just further down the road like they've always done? I mean, China itself said publicly that they had a serious debt problem, and that was back in 2006. And they promised they would work to deleverage it. But then they basically did the exact opposite for the next decade and leveraged the hell up. It's kind of like those people who, while eating a piece of cake, just keep saying, oh God, I am being so bad. I should not be doing this. I am just ruining my diet. I'm so bad. But then they just grab another slice and do it all over again. You know what though? I kind of like those people and their dirty talk. So bad. But anyway, the reason why the deleveraging is happening now is because there has been a significant, important change in the last year in China. And that change has been the centralization of power. So there's really only two types of governments that could handle a difficult rebalancing like the one we're talking about. One is a robust democracy with strong institutions like the US in the 30s. And the other is a strong centralized authoritative regime like China. Now the way China became centralized is with that whole anti-corruption campaign that they've been running for years now. You've probably heard about about it. And on top of that, last year they had the 19-party Congress where Xi Jinping, and sorry, I know I'm butchering his name, but I try to say it really fast so that you don't notice. But now that I'm telling you, you're probably noticing. It's okay, Pooh Bear won't mind. But anyway, what he basically did in last year's Congress was make himself the emperor of China. He consolidated his power so he could pretty much rule forever from this point. And now he could pretty much stop updating his LinkedIn too. I mean, what a lucky guy. Now you would probably think, as I did, that the Chinese government would be a well-oiled machine because, you know, communism. If you don't fall in line, you get the back of the hand. So if someone at the top says something, the people on the bottom just carry it out, no questions asked. But in fact, that's not how it works. The real power and control over all that debt-fueled spending, that was all at the local government level. It didn't come down from the top. The local guys basically did whatever they wanted, even if it went against Beijing's wishes. That's why publicly the national government has said many times how they need to rein in the debt. But the local guys, they just kept borrowing and building anyway because they continued to get more rich and more powerful. It's like a bunch of freaking teenagers, you know, they don't care what their parents say. But with this anti-corruption campaign the party has been running since 2012, they have punished or jailed over 1.5 million party members. And that has been effective on clamping down on these local guys. So again, it's just like teenagers. The only way to keep them under control is to beat them or take away their phones. I don't know. I'm clearly not a parent. But by doing all these things, Xi Jinping now has the authority he needs to carry out the party's plans. And actually on August 18th, which is my birthday, yeah, I'm a Leo, the party rules were updated to say that failure to carry out the party's plans would result in expulsion from the party. So running your own agenda at the local levels was not allowed anymore. And that's why this time is different. That's why the deleveraging is gonna happen now. And just check out what Xi Jinping said in 2016. If we don't structurally transform the economy and instead just stimulate it to generate short-term growth, then we're taking our future. If we continue to hesitate and wait, we will not only lose this precious window of opportunity, but we will deplete the resources we built up since the start of the reform era. He finished all that by saying that the country had until the end of 2020 to make this transition. So that's why I said in the previous video that the worst of China's deleveraging will happen over the next 2 years. And the current trade war with the US actually gives the CCP more political cover to go through the tough process of deleveraging now, because they got someone to blame. Because you know, who doesn't love blaming Trump for everything and anything? Other day I stubbed my toe, Trump's fault. But what does all this mean for asset prices? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about in the next video. So make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for a notification of when that video comes out. If you have any questions, just leave them below. And in the meantime, stay fallible out there. Bye.